You do some phenomenal work with legacy, the missing in action, and the find a grave. You're part of the Department of Minnesota. I think you're in First District.
Yes. Yep.
And so, how did you get started in it? Are you confined to your area? Because I'm assuming it's a lot of work.
I focus on my own area, but I
Do
get
you?
emails from everywhere.
Do
Can
you?
you find so and so? My dad was a veteran, you know. So yeah, I'm available to anybody.
Is there like a network of people that do the work that you do?
No.
And what do you do, by the way? What
Oh,
is it we're talking about?
we are talking about veteran memorial booklets I create.
Yeah.
I research one cemetery at a time and document all the veterans within that cemetery
Oh,
because I truly believe that once we reach that spot in life that our history is buried.
yeah.
So the old we have the saying, leave nobody behind, and I feel that that's part of it. If we can retain the history, we have that to educate our young soldiers with.
Yeah. It there's no spotlight on you. You're behind the scenes doing your work day in and day out. There's not a place for you at the table, if you will, where all the leaders are. But it's also the place that we hope that we're not forgotten upon our death. So you do this heavy lifting to not forget.
Yeah, um,
Yeah,
became
sorry.
important to me on for two reasons.
Uh huh.
Because I'm a survivor of suicide.
Okay.
Um, in 2012, uh, I have 18 years of military, and I had spent the last 12 years, sending young soldiers into a war zone,
Mm,
and that is a lot of responsibility.
it is.
And so in 2012, I went from a sergeant training and teaching to a grandmother and a mother and a sister, and I lost that edge. I saw it, and I think it was just the responsibility finally coming to an end for me.
Mm,
So, and then I had a stroke. So I was discharged from the military, and was kind of found, just had no direction. And the directions I kept choosing were the wrong ones that I never even participated in before. And I'm saying alcohol and gambling
mhm,
to the point where I didn't even care if I existed tomorrow.
mhm,
So the one night I was trying to look for a telephone pole to drive into,
mhm,
um, I called my daughter
mhm,
and told her I loved her, and she said, "Stop the car," and called the 800 number. She knew that's what us veterans needed to do. And she said, after that phone call, if you don't feel, like to live,
yeah.
I'll have to deal with that. So I called the 800 number, and I'm here today. But it took a long process. It took therapy. It took changing behaviors. Um, it took finding a source to make me feel complete, to make me feel fulfilled, to make me feel like I was part of society. Because I isolated myself so much, and we do that in depression, and we do that with
Mhm,
PTSD and the
yeah.
whole routine. So if I can say one thing to any veteran out there, find something you used to like to do that you forgot you like to do and go do it
Mm,
again. Because
just go
I
do it again.
found my daughter got me a course for genealogy
Uh
because
huh.
she knew back in the day I used to like to dabble in that.
Uh
I
huh.
took the courses and completed my family history. And then one Memorial Day, which is a very big day for me, my children, um, we came across graves of veterans that had no headstones. And it was like, that was very appalling to us. That was just not acceptable. So from that point, um, we got their headstones, we had their memorial service, we invited their extended families. And then after that, I began researching every cemetery, find out if their headstones were there or if they needed repairs. Or then as I got into it, I was reading the most exciting history of their time in service.
Oh.
So if you go to findagrave.com, you can go into
Uh-huh.
any cemetery in the US,
Mhm.
and just it's there. It's there. So I thought, how wonderful for American Legion posts, VFWs, DAVs, um, to have this reading material right there at their post.
Yeah.
So I started creating the booklets and donating them to the various organizations and haven't
Mhm.
stopped. So I've been
I
at it for over
appreciate
10
it.
years, and
10 years.
I
Oh my
now I
goodness.
network with cemeteries and the
Uh-huh.
morgues, and they actually, after COVID, they have a lot of unclaimed veterans that passed away. So then I try to research these veterans and get their history and contact their families, and we have a
Mhm.
memorial. So there's many directions I can go with this.
Huh.
Like in May, we placed a headstone for a Civil War vet,
Oh my.
and that family was saying, all we could do is come over here and look,
Uh-huh.
not knowing exactly where he was laid to rest because it
Uh-huh.
happened so long ago. So we got to that, and I always say we, but it's just me, and it's okay.
And the other
But I had to
unnamed
find a niche
individuals.
that fit my needs, fit my medical well-being, and
Yeah.
um, excuse me, I'm 100% disabled vet, and so I'm limited. But I can do this. I can do this all day and all night.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. I'm doing something about deceased veterans,
Mhm.
which I almost became.
Right.
So there's a strange relationship there, and it almost keeps me going.
Well, you touched on something earlier about returning to something that gave you purpose, and then feeding that. And so when you're lost in the dark and feeling like there's nothing, you can go back to where you were once before and pick up.
Yes, that never
Um,
changes,
it
in
never
my opinion.
changes.
All you have to do is sit down and think. And that question was asked to me, and I had to think. What used to make me happy? What
Mm,
did I used to do that occupied my time?
right.
Um, and for me, genealogy was it.
Mm,
Um, for somebody else, it could be woodcraft.
right.
It could be making model planes.
Yeah.
Whatever it was that was self fulfilling, that's what we're going to reach out to and grab again.
Yeah.
And I've had years of counseling, and I've never been told that.
Hmm.
I've been told a lot of other things, but that made the most sense to me.
And it's something that connects you with other people too.
Yeah,
So it fulfills a complete purpose.
and it's similar to a hobby, but it's not. It's
Right.
saving our lives, is what it's doing.
Right.
So we don't slip back into that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, don't you think our culture struggles with really trying to figure out our purpose, if you will? Like we feel like we should be happy to some degree, but really our purpose finds us and connects us.
it does, and when we take jobs that we don't like because the money's there
Yeah.
and it fulfills what we need to do, you lose that. When you're
Yeah.
doing things that aren't making you happy is what makes you more withdrawn. because you're never happy every day because you're not doing
Right.
what you like. And I tell my kids, my grandson, I said, don't pick a job because of the dollar. I said, pick a job because you have interest. And when you
Hmm.
have interest, you care.
Right. And caring is usually about community.
It is. It just
Yeah.
branches off to just it's like a tree. It's
Uh,
just it goes everywhere. My
and
little
you,
one thing
uh-huh.
has turned into so many things. Like we have the national commander for the American Legion coming in March. And
Le Carcier.
yep,
Yeah.
his mission is be the one for suicides. So
Hmm.
I've found out which post he's originally from, which is Post 91 in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of a cool name. So I've completed his cemetery booklets and will present that to him.
Oh my.
So it's different than a plaque or appreciation letter or whatever. So he'll go home with over 800 veterans that he can read their military history and then
Oh
give
my
the booklets
goodness.
to the post. And another thing, it's reuniting generations. This is
Hmm.
another angle that I have found that's so fun. I can come across 3 to 4 or 5 generations of
Hmm.
military families.
Hmm. Connecting. Again,
Yep.
there's the connection. And knowing who you are
And where you've been,
and
where
where
you're
you've
from.
been, your
Or
tribe, your people.
if we get a new member in a post, oh, I know your grandpa served. I got it right here. That makes a connection. That makes you feel like, oh, you
Mhm.
know me.
Right.
It's
Because
kind of
we're,
cool.
yeah, we don't want to be known, but we want to be known. The
Yeah.
paradox of it
You
all.
want to feel wanted. You want her to
We
feel
want to feel wanted. And knowing where you come from, who you belong to, what your last name is. I know where my family's buried. Um,
mhm.
and I also don't know where some of my relatives are buried.
Well,
And so
give me
there's
their
kind of a
name.
hole, you know? There's kind of this hole like, oh, well, you're out there somewhere. But for some reason, we like to know where they are.
Right. I think
It,
the last time you and I talked, you gave me a name of a cemetery, and I believe I've completed it for you.
oh my gosh. How difficult was that?
A
Was
few
it difficult?
hours. It was a small cemetery.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
If it's a large cemetery, like say over 300 memorials to go through, that will take about a week, about 40 hours.
Oh.
So I keep my hours because we can turn them into the posts and
Mhm.
get credit for volunteer hours.
Are you talking about the Consolidated Post report?
Yes,
Yeah, that is reported to Congress every year.
yes, yes.
Oh my gosh, another connection.
Isn't that crazy?
The fabric, it really to know that the American Legion, we're always behind the scenes, we're always doing our work, and we do it quietly. And so this podcast is really to help bring it out into the light, if you will, to showcase. Thank you for sharing your story, your experience. Training soldiers to go to war is a neat everyday story until you do it,
Yeah.
and until you've got skin in the game.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well, I was
and
thinking too. I wrote my story to the national commander, and it'll be included in his
uh
packet.
huh.
And I asked, have you ever met a suicide survivor?
Hmm.
Because I think it's important for us to tell our story. I don't always tell it, but if I can reach one veteran
Yeah,
and tell him how important he is or she is, and that I'll help them. We all will help them. Just reach
yeah,
out for us. We're here.
yeah.
Um,
There's suicide is a complex issue. But it also sounds like for you and for many, you end up at a place that you wouldn't have known about. It sounds like it was an accumulation that happened in your life, and it was a transformation into hopelessness. Oh,
I went from one extreme to the other. Like I said, I was looking for death, and
mhm.
and now I'm with it every day, in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Which
But in a
was
totally
that
different way. Yes. And First District gets to keep you all to themselves.
they do. No,
That's
I'll share.
okay.
I'll
I was like,
share.
that's not fair. Yeah. The
Um,
Department of Minnesota is very fortunate.
our commander too also has his booklets, and when I gave him his booklets, here his wife's family, the American Legion post was actually named after his wife's relative.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
again, generations.
Yeah, that connection and that fabric that keeps us together isn't
Yeah.
easily ripped. You know,
Oh,
there's many
life,
strands in
like
there.
we were talking about, life itself is so difficult. And if there's anything I
Hmm.
leave my kids is like, remember your roots, because they taught us
Yeah,
the best. They're old
yeah,
school. I'm old school, even though kind of conflicts with the new generation. And I'm okay with that.
always. Yeah, always. Yeah. I think I just, my kids, they're in their, my oldest is in his mid 30s, my youngest is in her early 20s. But for the very first time, I'm like, oh, I'm of a different generation. I don't necessarily am able to connect. So that generational, that's just part of living.
And mine's in the 40s and they want to start mothering me, telling me what I want to do. So you just
Right,
wait.
because
But
we
I find
start
this
out
is
being tended to, and we're going to end up being tended to.
yeah.
Yes.
But this is
And then
something
what
to
we
share with
do.
the family too. So I'm not isolating them from what I do. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, my daughters as auxiliary members and the
Uh-huh.
grandson as a son of the American Legion,
Okay.
they go with me on my trips when I go to my conventions or conferences and I hand out my booklets because I hope for them to take this on after I'm not here. And they
Because
can.
it's important. It's important. Who else does this kind of work? Do you
Um,
meet other people that have the same passion?
when you go on Find a Grave,
Okay.
you'll meet those people that do the research like I do, but they do it for
Hmm.
different reasons. Like a
Okay.
huge one is the Sons of the Revolutionary War.
Yep.
They go in there and thank every veteran, every Civil War veteran. So when I
Mm.
get to the page, it's like, oh, I know you guys. Then I click my little thing so they know I've been there. They know my research is documented.
Uh-huh.
I know their research is documented. Um, See, I do all wars. I can, it's so cool. I even have to look it up because some go so far back past the Civil War. We've had
Oh.
skirmishes here and there and everywhere. So I think my timetable goes back to the 1600s.
Do you ever have
Um,
to use the church records?
no,
Because churches used to be the genealogy record.
yes. No,
Okay.
it's gotten so um, modernized or
Okay.
duplicated or whatever you want to use that
Uh-huh.
now we have actually people that volunteer to go out to the gravesite, take the picture, write down the information. Then we'll have
Oh.
somebody else go and research the information, find out what high school they went to, did they serve in the military. So you have these people just applying their skill
Yep.
to this website.
Yep.
Um,
I
I'm
yeah.
I'm in awe all the time. Like right now on one of the websites, I found the department of the military that does the DNA and matching up deceased veterans
Mhm.
with family. We
Mhm.
have a World War I veteran that they're trying to find Minnesota family to
Mm.
match up with their DNA. And I'm trying to reach out through my American Legion posts for them to try to contact family members too, because that would be wonderful. If it's him, there's only 14 there. If it's him, it'd be great to bring him home. And that's so, again, here's another little offshoot of what this project can do.
Yeah, this I'm the this year's department chaplain, and this seems like an easy relationship. It should be together. And so I'm going to noodle on how we can lay the groundwork for this to continue, because we're not always going to be in our positions.
Sure.
I know you're not ready to retire. I'm not ready to retire, right?
Right.
We're busy and we're active in our components, but how can this continue to be developed?
Well,
Disenfranchised grief. Hmm?
on my part, when I give these booklets to the post, it includes a USB drive. So they can
Oh,
continue to add names and information and pictures. So it doesn't on my
interesting.
end, it doesn't ever have to stop. All I see is I've caught them up to this year. So it's on them to continue. And
Oh,
most posts have a historian. So hopefully this will be part of their job.
maybe a better fit would be the historian role,
Yep.
definitely, and then the chaplain or the service
Well, the
officer.
chaplain
We
too.
we can
And the
work
service
together as a
officer, we
team.
can find a lot of information out on
Yeah,
this veteran,
yeah,
and our county service officer, because he can order headstones.
yeah. I know one of the things in Minnesota that we're working on, and I don't know who we are necessarily, but the definition of the roles. Like, if you're in this role, what are you expected to do? And this seems to be something that should continue, because bringing people, the missing POWs and the MIAs,
Well,
and
at our
finding their,
meetings,
huh?
at our monthly meetings with the American Legion, we drape a POWMIA flag
Yep, all
and
the
say a
time.
prayer. I wanted to know their names. I wanted to know who they were. And
Say their
now I
names.
supply that in the booklets. So
Yeah,
we know their names. So every time I do that, I just get a warmth instead of used to get frustrated. Like,
yeah,
I should know their names.
yeah.
So I document that. I document tidbits like one veteran had 17 children with one wife,
Oh,
and six of those children all served.
oh my.
So,
That's almost one third.
yeah, and they all
Yeah,
came home.
and they all came home.
See, it just brings a smile to your face. It just,
It does. It does. Because war can be quite destructive to the social fabric and
yeah.
the family fabric.
And
Yeah.
back in the
So,
day, the time
mhm.
frame was where multiple sons could go,
Yep. Yeah.
or father and sons. Civil War brought on a lot of father and sons. World War
Yep.
One.
Yep. Yeah. And then how do we, as individuals and as communities and as nations, recognize? And the American Legion says we will not forget.
Yeah,
Our preamble is woven. We are here to the legacy of those. And every single post has to be named after a deceased veteran
correct.
from
Yep,
that community, not an alive veteran. And so every single post is designed at its very inception to remember,
yep,
because it's costly to send people to war.
yep.
Yeah. And it's a lot of hard work to come back too, it sounds like. For you, you said counseling. There was many
It took me a while to
inputs.
get well because I was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry at myself. I was angry at the military. I was angry at the world. So it took a while before I got healthy to to get to the point I am today. And I
Did
can
you
just
want
I keep a military resume, and every year I update it on what I've done during the year, so I can see the progress I'm making with myself. Kind of my
yeah.
little motivationer to say, okay, we did good this year. keep it going.
Yeah. Yes.
I think self recognition and self approval is important for us to look at ourselves and say, hey, we can do this. We got it.
Hmm. And then recognizing what are your boundaries and what is your lane. What are you responsible for? Because you are training other um, independent, autonomous individuals, and so we're independent and autonomous, and we make our own decisions, and we're responsible for our own decisions. And so
And
I
it can
don't
be
know
a
if part of
heavy burden. I don't like the word burden because that's what we chose to do.
yep.
But I think sometimes it's beyond our recognition of understanding the stress factor. I mean,
The
it's
chronic stress and how it accumulates, and then the taking on, and then what do you do with your emotions over a long time? Because your emotions like to sneak out and be recognized.
oh,
And your anger of this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm doing it, and the burnout, you know.
and I think that's a lot of us senior military personnel don't recognize that, and we don't get the assistance we need for our mental health, so we don't reach the point I did because
Mm-hmm.
I never saw it coming. I mean, I never
Mm-hmm.
correlated one with the other.
Right.
But had I had some understanding of that prior to, it
Mm.
might not have reached this point.
Hindsight is a good teacher, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I remember when I realized I was burnt out. I had no idea I was there. And then one day there was just a little chisel into my thought process, and I was like, for me it was like, oh my gosh. And it was a self-reflective moment of being able to look back, and I'm like, oh, there's apathy there, that desensitization, the carrying on of the burdens, finding a place for it, living in a culture that isn't carrying the burden with me.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
was bad. I mean, even my kids saw it before.
yeah,
They sat me down. They talked to me. They said,
did
"We
they?
miss our mom. You're not her.
No,
You're
there's
this
a
little
lot.
Gumby that the military's created." And it's like, no, I got this. I think wasn't even close.
Yeah,
So it
there's
is
some.
noticeable.
It is noticeable, and I don't mean this to be a political statement, or a gender podcast, um, because women have always fought alongside men in any conflict, going back as long as human beings have
Yep.
been in conflict. But there's something to be said about being able to compartmentalize events and then always having a relational bend, and how do those two mesh together? Because one compartmentalizer needs to have an emotional relationship piece in there, and then one relationship minded person needs to be able to compartmentalize. So, there's a time and place for all of it. So how do we work together? I know you're catching what I'm saying.
I am. It
Yeah.
was like I didn't even see it then. It was
Right.
they were like, "Oh, do I got time to care for me?"
Right.
It wasn't even a concept.
What does
As
that
a
look
single
like?
parent, two kids, I had 40 soldiers
Mhm.
that are coming and going. I
Yep.
mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you're here.
I am too. Yeah.
I'm
I
very
mean,
glad you're
it's kind
here.
of crazy. I get that, but I mean, what do you do with it? But be happy. Um,
Yeah. You
you know,
seek
and
help, it sounds like. And
uh,
let other people see what you can't currently see,
yeah.
sometimes.
Um, and then when they came out with this "Be the One," I really didn't understand it
Oh,
because I didn't look at myself within it.
mm,
So here
right,
I'm out, really loving
right.
the concept and loving the message and all this, and it was like, wait a minute here. My
Yes.
daughter was the one. I was the veteran. So sometimes I don't even now put the two
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
So that's why
Owning it.
when I do have an opportunity where I feel comfortable, and thank you, Kelly,
Mhm.
to share this,
You're welcome.
it is very important because
It's
we
very
don't
important.
sometimes see it coming.
No, it just kind of becomes your reality that you're living in, and we don't see
I
necessarily
think the
that
isolation
self-reflection.
is the first noticeable behavior because I used to be really outgoing and
Did
I'd
you?
be in everything, and then all of a
Did you?
sudden I didn't leave my place for days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so now you're here and you're find a grave. It sounds like is where you park yourself with
right,
helping people find their loved ones' grave sites.
yes,
Okay.
or not,
And
yeah,
then,
their loved ones. I focus on veterans. There's other websites, I believe. You're never going to be wrong. You can type in the person's name and sometimes get information up.
oh, okay.
I don't go into Ancestry. I don't go into a lot of places because mine deals with deceased.
Your lane is clearly defined. Veterans,
Yes.
military. When we saw each other at First District Midwinter, Olaf Johnson, you
Yes.
gave me, yeah, Olaf Johnson, that
Yes.
paperwork. And it sounded
He's
like you were,
yeah.
did you want to talk to me about him?
Um,
Or,
we did, and that's the one that's DNA I'm trying to find. Correct? Yep.
uh-huh. Yep, you're trying to find him. Houston, Minnesota Memorial states that he is one of 14 remaining MIAs from the Hickman Field at Pearl Harbor. And so they had requested that any family members contact their agency or Chief Rick Stone Family Foundation. So Olaf Johnson, 1921 to 7 December 1941. And they have the family members in there and a lot of his information. And so it sounds, you're a matchmaker,
I'm
you
trying.
know? Yeah. You match people with who they belong to and those individuals that died in service and then honoring them.
Our county service veteran officer also plays a huge part.
Does
Once
he?
I find these
Person?
things like him, that would be my next phone call
What do
because
you
he's
do?
got the veteran computer database
Okay.
that we can reach more people through that too. So
Oh.
there's people out there, like I said, networking with funeral homes, the cemeteries,
Mm,
our service
excuse me.
officers, our military posts, our organizations. There's a lot of people that know a lot of people.
Yep.
So there's a lot of help
And
out there to connect.
one of the other things, and you're aware of this too, but we need to bring it up, is the post will work with their service office to make sure they have that bronze star on their gravesite.
Yes, we're all entitled to that.
Yep.
Um, so that's one of our benefits, and that's something else I put out there too. Is
Hmm.
we need 1-800 number, and I don't have it,
That's okay.
but I put it out at meetings because a veteran can pre set himself up for where he wants to go,
Hmm.
who to contact, upon his death,
That's
so
through the
that the
VA.
family doesn't have to do it.
Yep, the VA will do that for you.
Yes, the
The
VA is wonderful. The
Cemetery
spouses,
Administration.
you know, get that
Hmm.
information to the VA or the service officer,
Yep.
because it's so important for your death benefits, which assist with burial. You can go to a national cemetery. You can be cremated. There's a lot out there. Um, we earned it. Use it.
Yeah, because carrying the burdens um, adds another layer um, because to serve and protect is something. The American Legion, and I'm sure you're aware of this, brought women into the fold before they could vote. So in 1919, and when they were in France, and then when they came over to and met and ratified their constitution, They said it didn't matter what gender you were, or what skin color you were, what religion you were. We all served, and so we are all part of, and that's why they named it Legion and not something else, because we're many, we're diverse, and we all have a place. And I'm just very thankful that you're part of the Legion.
Um, you mentioned that before about women being in the military, and I
Mm-hmm.
entered in 1975. So back then it was still,
Oh, you were burning bras back
it's
then.
50 years. It's yay, my anniversary is here. Um, 50 years. But anyway,
Yeah,
now I belong to post spam post 570,
yeah,
which is a
yeah,
post of all women.
yeah.
There's only 4 states in the United States that have an all female American Legion
Okay,
post.
okay,
So, and I joined that because it was so unique. It is unique. I have a place to go that understands.
right.
Women are from Vietnam. They're from, I'm not sure if we have any World War II. I think the last one passed away last
Mm,
spring.
yeah,
But it's a unique experience. And then there's freeborn
yeah,
county women vets that meet once a month, first Wednesday at
uh-huh.
11:30 at the American Legion in Albert Lea, and that's just for lunch, just to socialize. We update each other on how our months went, or if there's a veteran in need,
Yeah,
we make purses with a purpose, which has cosmetics and hygiene products, and we give them to our veteran county veteran service officer so that when a woman in need comes, you can have her choose a purse and something from us. And
very thoughtful.
yeah, so
That's
there's,
very thoughtful. Yeah, the
or we
number
take them to
keeps
nursing homes.
increasing.
Pardon?
Yeah, women are above 14%. The last I heard 16 to 18% of the military, but that's still less than one fourth of the military.
I remember when it was down to 4 and 5%. So yay!
Yeah, and when I was a hospice chaplain, one of the most privileged positions I could be was sitting and listen to a woman who is now looking at her last days, and she would tell me about her service in the military. And one of the roles that a lot of the women were only allowed to serve in was in the commissary. So they had to wear lipstick. There was a certain presentation that they had to put forth to bring cheer and joy to those that were going to be getting
Correct.
deployed.
Yeah.
And so they would always tell me I wanted to serve my country, and this is the only way I could do it. And so they would. But they were very proud that they could serve their country. They used to call them WACs
Yep.
then, Women Army Corps. Yeah.
Still do that. That ended in like in 78. So I
Hmm.
fall under the whack.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
I
It
know
was
when I
even
joined, they always asked,
during
aren't you a WAC?
my basic training, the government actually, um, I was one of the first women to legally qualify with the M16 because
Oh my.
women couldn't have weapons prior to that. And I thought it's 1975 and you're just authorizing the use of weapons when you've had Vietnam, you've had World War II and one. What the heck?
What the heck? And when I was in basic training, our 10 years later, our in basic training in AIT, we could qualify with an M16, but we could see the men training, and they would do hand to hand combat.
Oh, I've
So,
never.
and we were told that we would never need to
Yeah.
be in hand to hand training situation. We would never need hand to hand combat. And we all looked at each other like, you are not a woman. You have no idea what you're talking about. Of course, we need to know how to defend ourselves.
There'd be less sexual trauma in the military if we had.
And like, women need to know how to defend
Yeah.
themselves. when I rejoined in the Guard, in Minnesota Army National Guard, probably one of the most astounding things I ever saw in my entire life was a pit. After your day of training and stuff, they would, humans would make a circle, and then one person would step forward, another person would step forward into the pit, and then they would practice their hand-to-hand combat. And you would have men and women in the pit at the same time. So sometimes you'd have a male and a female um, fighting. And I thought, oh my goodness. I mean, within my lifetime. And sometimes the women took the guy down, and the men would get chided heavily. And so
Well,
you just never know. I think it really has a lot to do with your passion and how you're hardwired, if you will.
yeah.
Some people are really good farmers, and some people are really, good bakers, and some people are really good seamstresses, and some people are really good counselors. It takes all
Yep.
types, right? Yeah. Anyway, I usually give the guests the final word as we leave. And so, is there anything you'd like to leave our guests? So, just so before you do, Spotlight on Spirit, hosted by the Department of Minnesota. This website's going to be on YouTube as well as on Spotify, and our audience is growing. And so, I'll send you a link. But I have been starting to get a lot of feedback from people outside of the American Legion telling me they listen in.
Oh, how wonderful.
I think it is. And so your message and what you do with Find a Grave and being a suicide survivor is going to reach outside of the veteran community, which to me is hopeful. It makes me cry when I think about it. So I won't think about it too hard right now. But thank you. So, any parting words?
If you're in need, reach out. We've all been there. I've had
Yeah.
my life together and ripped from under me and had to reach out. There's nothing wrong with it, but don't let your pride stand in the way.
Oh, that pride. Thank you.
Amen.
Appreciate you.
Um,